Good morning, everyone. Welcome, and I'd like to call our meeting to order. My name is Lorraine Cunningham, and I'd like to welcome you to TransLink's last public board meeting of 2018. And welcome to all of those that are watching us live streaming today through Facebook or Twitter. Thanks for joining us. At this point, I'd like to call our meeting to order. I want to acknowledge that TransLink operates throughout the traditional territories of the Lower Mainland Coast Salish people. Specifically, this meeting is being held in the traditional territory of the Kikite First Nation. Here at TransLink, we take safety at a very high level of importance, and this is for the public as well as our employees. And I'd like to take a minute to point out the location of our emergency exits, and you'll see one right across the hallway here. In the event of an alarm, please exit in an orderly fashion and meet at the muster station, which is at the construction fence at the side of the building at the Sapperton SkyTrain station. Soon we'll be able to get rid of that note and put something other than a construction fence. For those who've used mobility devices, please do not use the elevator, but gather in the vicinity of the stairwell and enter the safe refuge area. Our floor wardens will come and make sure that the fire department knows where you are and they can prioritize your safe exit from the building. In the event of an earthquake, please remember to drop, cover, and hold until the shaking has stopped. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to welcome new board members that are joining the TransLink board today. New Westminster Mayor Jonathan Cote, who's sitting here to the left of Gigi, who was elected chair of Mayor's Council, is joining the board, as well as the Township of Langley Mayor Jack Froese, who's sitting to the right of Kevin, was elected as the vice chair of Mayor's Council last month. As most of you know, both the chair and vice chair of Mayor's Council sit on the TransLink Board of Directors, and we'd like to welcome them here today. I'd also like to welcome Dr. Harj Dhaliwal, who will be joining the board as of January 1st, and Harj is sitting here to my right, and he's here as an observer today. Harj comes to us with a unique set of skills in evaluating organizations and projects, and currently serves as the chair of the South Fraser District Association, the largest soccer youth district under BC soccer in the province. So welcome to all three, our new gentlemen, and I know they'll be great members of the board going forward. It's also my pleasure to announce that Larry Beasley and Tony Gugliotta, and I just said that wrong, Tony. Where are you, Tony? Has been reappointed for a 3-year term beginning January the 1st. It's great to have all of you as part of the board and moving forward with the organization in the years ahead. And as you may know, my term as board chair of TransLink has come to an end, and this will be my last meeting. I'm honored to welcome Tony Gugliotta as the new chair of the TransLink board, effective January the 1st. So thank you, Tony. And on that note, I'm going to move to the consent agenda. So we have a public board meeting minutes of October the 4th, and we have response information from the public delegations from the previous meeting. So I'd like to move to approve the consent agenda. Thank you. Thank you, and all in favor? Thank you very much. Our next item on the agenda is our public delegations. We have 5 delegates that are, 4 actually, that are here to speak to us today. And so Gigi has a timer here that she's going to put up. We ask you to respect the 5 minutes that we allotted for the delegates. And the first person that I'd like to call up is Kelly Rayburn. And Kelly is going to speak to us about the night bus service. Welcome, Kelly.
You guys can hear me? Yeah. Good morning, Ms. Cunningham. Good morning, Mr. Desmond. And good morning, everybody to the board. My name is Kelly Rayburn. I'm a transit rider. As you can see, I have a red compass card. I'm just hoping they'll have a wrist one sometime soon with the red one instead of the blue and yellow ones for that matter. So I'm hoping the red ones will be handy for disability and seniors as well. Yes, so I'm here to talk about the night bus services. And last time when I hear some announcements that they were saying about night bus, TransLink was going to reduce to its service to 80% or something like that, to that matter. And then, I mean, these are the transit schedule service that I do follow and do regularly follow along with the services as well. So I'll begin with the regular, mostly detailed on the services. For example, the North Shore bus. I know that C-Bus doesn't operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year on that matter. And the N24 bus comes in regularly service out of Vancouver. Hardly doesn't even come into Vancouver for that matter. I don't know why, but I'm guessing it's the low amount of customers coming from North Shore to Vancouver. I live on the west side of Vancouver, near Dunbar, so I normally take the bus number N22 McDonald and downtown route. And I'm pleased that the bus service on that route from downtown over to Dunbar Loop is saved. And I know I saved for myself because I made a suggestion of rerouting the route going along McDonald and Mackenzie route instead of going down Dunbar Street and going down towards 4th Avenue as an alternative route. Going back to downtown for that matter. So I'm a little nervous here, so bear with me. Anyways, most of the eastern routes like N19, N15, no, not really, N35 and N9, those are the three major routes have been increased its service during that time. Unfortunately, N19 heading to downtown only does 3 stops from Surrey to downtown Vancouver when SkyTrain is not operating. There are a lot of people, for example, there are a lot of people that want to maybe leave work early in the morning, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and don't get a chance to take the SkyTrain because they're closed for that matter. Maybe have extra service along N19 going downtown in similar to what they do going eastbound. Just have extra service going westbound to downtown. The other situation is I know N9 and N35 are good service and they do a lot of extra service when SkyTrain's not operating, but service to the airport is very important for some people who wants to catch an airplane earlier in the morning or just to, try and be there and relax for at the airport before making their destination. So I'm hoping the N10 or maybe the N15, I heard N15 was a possibility going to the airport, but you never know. I know N10 only does 3 trips to the airport, and the rest are just going to Richmond instead. So I'm just hoping that we need more service to the airport. Priority, just kind of a priority situation. So in closing, I would like to see more services on the night bus, and I'm hoping that it will happen again soon. Thank you very much for your time for my thoughts and comments.
Thank you, Kelly. Kevin's got a few comments for you.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Good timely discussion. As you know, and you acknowledged in 2017, as part of the first round of the mayor's plan, service expansions, the night bus, I think, was one of the first rounds of services we did in March, I think, of 2017. Right. So we've had our eye on that. We've seen good pickup in ridership over the last couple of years in night bus, and our planners are going to be doing more work on the night bus network starting next year. So we're going to be looking at that very, very closely. If you want to talk some more about it, you can talk to Mr. Cross or Sarah Ross, our Director of Service Planning as well. They can give you a little bit more of an update on what our plan is to continue to review. But we agree with you. It's a very important part of the network. and of growing importance.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Desmond. Thank you.
Anne?
You want it?
Thank you as well, particularly for highlighting the importance of safety.
Yes.
For people using the system, which I thank you for. And also just mention you didn't look nervous at all.
Well, I do my best. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kelly. And I'd like to now invite Laura McEnroth up. And Laura wants to speak to us about washrooms. Is Laura here? Okay. Hi, Laura, and welcome. Can you just hit the button on the microphone so that we can hear Laura? There you go. Thank you very much.
Sorry, technology issues.
No worries. Thanks very much.
We're gonna free flow this. Good morning, and thank you for having me to come here today to speak to you again. My name is Laura McEnroth, and I'm the former Vice Chair of the Persons with Disabilities Advisory Committee for the City of Vancouver. Currently, there are no advisory committees at this moment. However, in 2019, the new City Council will appoint new committees and new members. I wanted to bring to your attention, however, that many of our advisory committees worked hard on the washrooms and stations issue last year, and I have provided you today with packages that outline 4 of our advisory committees who did motions or letters, including the Persons with Disabilities Advisory, the Seniors Advisory, the Children, Youth and Families Advisory, and the Active Transportation Policy Council. In 2017, many of us attended meetings and consultations about this issue, about adding the new addition to the Broadway line, to the Millennium Line. In 30 years ago, we added new SkyTrains to our city. However, now it looks like there will only be plumbing to be added into the stations to be able to include future washrooms. This is really not acceptable, and this is really not an option. How can you deny people the ability to do a basic human need every day? Board members, you cannot tell me that you do not have to use washroom facilities multiple times in a day. This is not just a disabilities issue. This is an accessibility issue, one that affects us all ages and all abilities. Women also have to deal with the added issues of their monthly menstrual cycles, which they have to deal with for approximately 40 years of their life. As well, women who have had children or who perhaps are pregnant have also additional bladder issues they might have to deal with. Still, other people and seniors might have bladder, prostate, digestion, and other medical conditions in which they might not be able to get to a washroom very quickly, in which they might need to do so. Persons with disabilities might need to have access to larger washrooms in order to be able to accommodate their mobility devices. As well, we need universally designed gender-neutral washrooms because people with disabilities might need to travel and use the trains with people of other genders in order to be able to help them. As well, children, seniors, and persons with disabilities might not be able to go or walk long distances in order to be able to hunt down a washroom. And we cannot expect private businesses to open up their bathroom facilities for the public. I know lots of people who do not use our public transit because they have no access to washrooms. As well, people are telling me that they dehydrate themselves because they know if they take a public transit trip, they will not have access to bathrooms. The survey clearly shows that the majority of current transit users would like to have washrooms and it would better benefit their life. What the survey omits is any information or comments from people who could be prospective transit users, but who do not use the current transportation system because of the lack of washrooms. We need to design and build universally accessible, gender-neutral washrooms into all of our new stations, as well as retrofit as many of our current stations as well. One concern is that there might be safety issues with regards to having washrooms in the stations because of the homeless. As well, people might be concerned that the washrooms might be filthy and not properly maintained. However, if we employ attendants to clean the washrooms, as well as self-cleaning technologies, these issues can be addressed. There are cities around the world that seem to be having washrooms in their stations, and so should we. We're a world-class city here in Vancouver. So please, I beg of you, put washrooms into all of our stations. Our residents of Vancouver and those of the other cities around us will thank you, as well as the over 10 million tourists that we have per year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. Appreciate it. And we're going to be discussing this issue on our agenda a little bit later, so there'll be further discussion about it. So appreciate your feedback. Thank you. So I'd like to invite Margaret Halsey. Margaret wants to talk to us about pets. Welcome, Margaret.
Thank you. Where's this little timer thing?
Oh, it's right here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, can you see that okay?
Yeah.
And it'll make a ding in with about a minute left.
Okay.
So there'll be a sound that you'll hear to just tell you that
Can I
you're...
ask a question before? I know it's going to take me 5.5 to 6 minutes.
So if you can just try and keep it as...
I've tried really hard to get it to 5.
Okay, let's get started. Thanks.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm going to rapid speak. I presented to the board 4 years ago asking... Oh, sorry. Did I even put it on? Are we on? Okay, good. Okay, I was here 4 years ago asking for dogs on transit to be changed to allow more dogs, stick to the script. This last 4 years have been very difficult for the TransLink staff. There's been lots of issues for them to deal with, and so it wasn't until this year that the staff had an opportunity to address this. Knowing that they were in progress in doing so, I spoke again this year, asking the same and was well received. Your staff and management have now presented to you a recommendation regarding the dogs on transit policy. You'll see it this morning. As this is further in your agenda, I don't know what your decision is going to be. However, if you decide to allow more inclusive and extended policy for dogs on transit, I need say no more. I can go home now. I need to carry on, however. As I want to be clear, it's still what I want to see happen. Yet, if you're considering leaving the dogs on transit policy as it is, as the report is recommending, then instead I'd like you to consider a pilot project of more inclusive dogs on transit policy. Go Transit in Ontario just conducted a 3-month pilot project, and it was a very big success, and the staff and management have recommended changing the policy to allow the dogs on trains full-time. The report the TransLink management and staff has provided for you is very complete. It shows 6 cities in North America that have expanded pet policies, allowing dogs on transit on leash, not just in cages. These are major cities, including Toronto, Calgary, Seattle, San Francisco. Vancouver is also a dog-friendly city, just like these cities, and I believe it could work here too. In the survey, staff and management conducted, they saw that 49% responded supportive, 34 said not so sure, and 17 didn't vote at all. So if you count those, and maybe they did vote, that could be 66% that voted on the positive side. The report states that all groups acknowledge that the potential benefit of allowing expanded access for those who would like to travel with their pet. However, they also have mentioned challenges, and all these challenges have been mentioned before. And I'm certain that dogs that are allowed only at set times or on specific trains or buses would alleviate all the considerable amount of the challenges. Other things, such as wearing a muzzle or a jacket, the dog, I mean, not the person, have been suggested by me before. If a service dog was riding, he or she would take priority, of course, and if there was a dog with a companion dog in person, they'd wait for the next car. Instead of possible reduction in revenue, as your report suggests, dog guardians who ride with their pets could be charged a fee. I think this is done in Seattle. I have more revenue ideas as well. If the dogs in transit policy were changed, this would benefit many dog guardians, me included, that want to travel with their pet for various reasons outlined in your report. Yet there's many that don't take the transit and wouldn't really care, but I don't think that any of them would object. What I'm saying here is that the change in policy would likely only result in a spattering of well-behaved dogs traveling with their people on transit. In some of these cases, they're pets, but they're helping their people as well. With this change in policy, I doubt that we'd be flooded with misbehaved dogs. My desire to have dogs on transit started when I was working in an office that allowed my dog to come, and it was on the transit line. I don't have that job now, but I still prefer one dog, one person, one car to get to anywhere I can by transit. And while I do have a car, there are many people that don't have a car, and this city has so many beautiful parks for people to walk in, and it's a shame that none of those people can go to those parks with their dog unless a friend drives them. I do realize, and I realize I only have 34 seconds left, so I'm asking for 34 more seconds. I do realize that when one compares this issue with the challenges that TransLink faces every day, it's a minor issue, yet extremely important to me and to many people who have a dog as part of their family. I also realize that the transit system should suit the needs of its riders, and they're usually people, not dogs. The transit system is for people. I'd be happy to help in any way in the implementation. Me and my 42-pound, 12-year-old well-behaved whippet, we could be your ambassadors. If you've not chosen to make the dogs on transit policy more inclusive yet, I hope that what I've said will help you in this decision. If you're not quite ready to make that decision, then a pilot project. I'm asking that if you were to have a pilot project, you could do it very similar to the Metro Go Transit did this year that was a very big success. An announcement in the media would help it get going. As you can tell, last page, I'm really supportive of changing the policy to allow dogs on transit with rules, restrictions, specific times of the day. Toronto and Seattle, for example, are two cities where this is working, and it's been working very well. Originally from Toronto, it's been working 40 years there. I'm certain we are similar in that it would work for us too. In summary, I hope that when the report is addressed to you today in your agenda, that you will vote to change the policy to allow dogs on leash on transit with stated restrictions and times. Or if you're still leaning towards leaving it as is, I hope you will agree to a pilot project. Try it out. Allow dogs on leash when transit with stated restrictions starting as soon as possible. Thank you very much for listening and giving me the extra time.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Appreciate your comments, and we'll be in that topic of deliberation in a little bit, so thank you. I'd like to invite Albert up. Albert Lanius, nice to see you again. Welcome.
Okay, am I close enough to the mic? Okay. I understand that the Surrey transit decisions are being reconsidered, so this is for future reference. I imagine the decision-making process will play out as it will, so this is for the future. My name is Albert Lanius. I have been driving buses for people with disabilities for 43 years. I was driving them before they were called handy darts. I speak as an individual from my own perspective. A change has been proposed for the Surrey Transit Plan. I have two comments. First, if the SkyTrain is to be built, the handy dart passengers can only make use of it if there's a method to get them to the station. Otherwise, the distance to the station is one more barrier. I have already made this point when speaking on the Vancouver subway. This is a shameless plug for Handy Dart. Second, there seem to be two different impulses at work here, and a choice needs to be made. In one model, transit follows the needs as the city expands. In the other model, high-speed transit is built to induce people to live in certain areas. In transit, public money should follow public need, not guide it. Systematic expansion. I am suggesting that the board should develop a step-at-a-time approach to the development of new transit lines and to go up in stages rather than going straight to the final high-density version. When new areas are built, transit should normally start with shuttles until they are at capacity at rush hour, and then move to 40-foot conventional buses until they are full, and then move to articulated buses until they are full, and then possibly move to double articulated buses, and from that to light rail transit, and then as a final step to SkyTrain or subway. This is an idealized version. Most of the region is somewhere in the middle of the process. Your statistics will tell you where to start with larger capacities. One of the values of the step-at-a-time method is that securing the right-of-way for bus rapid transit would help in securing the right-of-way for the LRT, which would lead naturally to securing the right-of-way for future subway or SkyTrain once need is proven. A possible visual tool. I checked the website. There are plenty of reports and statistics, but I see no chart or map to make it clear which lines are at capacity and need to be expanded. Perhaps I just missed it. If this method or some version of it is already in place, it needs to be emphasized. A chart could be made and regularly updated to show which lines are full at every rush hour, which lines are are full less than 5 days a week, and which lines are lightly traveled every day of the week. The chart should be color-coded as well as having the numbers so that people who cannot visualize statistics, and that's most of us, will know what is meant when the planners read the reports. It should be near the front page and easy to find. I believe that transit should follow population growth, not precede it, and attempt to channel it. And I have a final note here. A less traveled route probably needs modification, like more bus shelters or accessible stops. Both of these things are important to Handy Dart passengers. And I'd like to add something just in passing. The things that Laura McEnroe was telling you about, you hear them a lot. I'm a transit rider, and I wish that there were washrooms in the stations myself. And my passengers tell me that too. They would use SkyTrain and other things more frequently if there were washrooms. So my topic was going up in steps and also making sure that there's some kind of a vehicle to take people to the new SkyTrain when or if it is built. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Albert. We really appreciate your commitment and dedication to building a better system for all of us.
I have copies of this, but they're small print, so we'll probably send a larger print email to make it easy to read.
Great, thank you. Larry Beasley would like to say a word.
I just wanted to ask the staff, do we have such a chart as has been suggested? Perhaps it's just not been as readily evident to Albert as if it's there. It'd be nice for him to know that.
Yeah, that material and that kind of information is available to us, yes. I think we've shown it in various different dimensions before as well.
I found a lot of good charts, but I didn't find one specific to that particular item, and that would be very useful.
Yeah, I don't know if we publish it on a routine basis, but as part of our annual system performance report.
Oh, the annual report.
From that basis. Jeff can probably speak to you more about what is available
Sure.
on that, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that ends our public delegations that are registered. So the next item on the agenda is our executive reports, and that starts with Kevin Desmond, CEO, is going to give us a year-end review. So I'll turn it over to Kevin.
And I now have the clicker.
You do.
So I can
You're
drive.
under control.
So I can drive. I like to drive with the clicker. Well, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board, and my welcome as well to our new board members, Mayors Frozen and Cote as well, and Harsh. Welcome. Good to have you here today. Is to get used to our board proceedings. So this is the last board meeting of the year, and as we close out the year, I thought it would be timely to provide a brief year-end review. And in fact, We achieved a lot of really important milestones this year here at TransLink. It's something I know the entire team is very proud of, and it certainly helps to create a good launching pad for what promises to be a very, very active agenda going forward into 2019 as well. Some of that prefigured in the budget presentation a little bit later. First, and I think most importantly from our perspective is our promise to the public to deliver on the service expansion as outlined in the mayor's plan. We are completing the second year of what we hope will be a 10-year expansion plan. Significant increases in bus service happened last year, and in fact, through the end of this year, we're more than halfway to the bus service expansion included in the 10-year plan, some 275,000 hours out of the 500,000 hours planned in the 10-year plan, and with the full funding of the so-called Phase 2 plan through 2021, by the time that's implemented, we'll be some 2/3 along the way. In order to make that happen, in large part, we had to hire a lot of people this year. We hired or processed some almost 1,200 new folks. Some of those were internal moves, that it did include 724 new employees coming into the organization. Most of those were bus operators. We've been talking about that here as well, and Mike McDaniel will be referencing that in his report. But in preparing for this, I noted from HR that as part of the recruitment process, our HR group processed 44,914 job applications this year, almost 45,000 job applications. That's a 65% increase over the previous year. I had not seen that number before. It's actually kind of astonishing, and I think we all need to give our HR folks, the recruitment team under Jean Wong, a huge hats off to manage that. It's been an intense process, so very well done, and I know that they've been pulling out all the stops with Coast Mountain Bus Company, particularly to get the bus operators that we need to deliver on the mayor's plan each and every day. So that's been quite a milestone, and I think it's a big wow when you see those numbers. Of course, we need people to operate the service. We also need vehicles to operate the service. And Coast Mountain Bus Company this year took delivery on some 275 additional 40 and 60-foot buses. All of those are clean burning, clean emission, lower emission vehicles, whether compressed natural gas or diesel hybrid. Electric, some 60% of CNBC's fixed route fleet now uses clean burning, clean engines, and I think it represents the bridge to what we hope into the next decade, when we are starting to purchase only zero-emission buses, and that's part of our work program going forward. In addition, 88 new handy-dart vehicles and 28 additional community shuttle buses. So that renewal of the fleet, whether retiring aged equipment or bringing an expansion fleet, has been very, very important to the operation of the service, and I think the customer service as well. Similarly, we are proceeding on building the new rail cars that were funded in the Phase 1 of the plan. 56 cars from Bombardier for the Expo Millennium line. You'll be hearing from Hayden shortly on what's going on with that. And the Canada line cars being built in South Korea will start arriving at the end of next year, and they will be deployed for service into 2020. Those projects are a little behind schedule, but largely along the lines of what we are expected to deploy the added service. And Hayden, as I said, will have more to say. And our third C-Bus is under construction in the Netherlands right now. We expect delivery of that vessel around the first quarter of next year for deployment sometime in the summer. We reached major milestones with successfully delivering the business cases for our 3 so-called mega projects earlier this year. The Patello Bridge, something that this board's been thinking about for an awful long time. We got that business case to the province. Province approved the business case and then went the extra mile and took the project from us, which I think was a good move. And that project is now in procurement, and we expect construction to start perhaps by late next year. And the province is still online to have the new bridge in place by 2023. Similarly, we successfully delivered our business cases for the Broadway Subway project and the Surrey Newton Light Rail project. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But those were big projects and major milestones for us to deliver each of those business cases so that we could advance our major infrastructure projects. And probably most importantly, and represented a huge amount of collaborative work throughout the region, was the adoption of the Phase 2 investment plan last summer by this board and by the Mayor's Council. Record $7.3 billion of investments. We've talked a lot about that this year, but it really marks 2018 as a major turning point, I think, for the region for transit investment, and does, of course, set us up for the further discussions. Of course, we also have to be very much focused on the customer experience. The meat and potatoes of what we do is adding capacity to the system, but we also have to be doing the other things to put our customer first. And something that I'm proud of, and again, is a milestone here, it's been talked about for a while, we developed over about an 8-month period a new customer experience action plan, published that plan in September. It includes some 61 initiatives that we expect to be implementing between 2018 and 2025. I note 2025 is the point of departure because that's when the Broadway Subway is set to open and when the what we had thought the Surrey Light Rail project delivery, so it's sort of our boundary. It's a living document, however, and it's a document that I expect will continue to be updating. But those 61 initiatives, once they're all implemented, will go a long way to further improve customer experience. We also need to do the little things. Pictured here is a bus stop sign. My staff knows that I get obsessed over little things like this, but these are the little things that matter. Instead of having a sign with virtually no information, Coast Mountain Bus, over about an 18-month period, expedited the replacement of some 8,400 bus stop signs with our new design. It's a small rectangular piece of metal that has a lot of information on it. And I'm very proud of CNBC for making that happen. That started under Hayden's watch and continued under Mike's watch. As you know, we recently, a couple months ago, or last month, started up our live chat for folks who wanted to interact with our customer service representatives, and we've been improving our transit alerts. We're also having some fun along the way with various different campaigns, and fun, I think, is an important part of any organization, whether it's internal or with the general public and our customers. Our Tap to Pay campaign, also pictured in the upper left on the visual that we launched in the late spring. We were the first in Canada, of course, with the ability to just tap directly with a credit card or your wallet-enabled cell phone, and only the second in North America with that type of feature. To date, we have some 1.5 million unique cards have been tapped into our system since the project went live in late May. Some 3.8 million taps, $7 million in revenue from that. We had a lot of fun with Seth Rogan, who came to our rescue, as it were, and became the voice of transit etiquette. Again, we're very grateful that Mr. Rogan donated his time for Vancouver in so many ways. But again, it was fun. It brought some fun to the system while we were trying to communicate important information. And then just this week, you saw in the media the wristbands, which those wristbands sold out in a matter of hours. I woke up in the morning virtually to photographs of people lining up at the West Coast Express customer service office and our stadium customer service office with folks lining up. And we've gotten a lot of very good mileage to that. And I know Mr. Langmead, Mark, who's been behind that project all along, is a proud dad for that project. And we will be expanding and making wristbands available in a future sale as well. We're very proud of our Universal Faregate Access Program. It's something that this board approved in 2017. We are the first in the world with that type of system to provide full accessibility to the SkyTrain system. All 56 stations have been installed with the Universal Faregates, which we met our target and our expectations going forward. The Night Bus District pilot that we launched this summer was a neat exercise. I think a very nice marketing campaign. You see that pictured in the middle over the slide. From July through November of this year, night bus ridership is up some 24%. It's not all that marketing campaign. Some of that has to do with the service improvements and just the general background ridership. But we believe by enhancing the general public awareness of the night bus service in the Granville Entertainment District downtown, that it has helped the ridership as well. One of the things we've been thinking about a lot, we've been talking about with this board, is how to bring innovation to the organization, how we can move a little bit more nimbly to adopt, to anticipate, to adopt new technologies into our program. We issued our very first open innovation call this summer, and within the next few weeks we'll be announcing the winners of that open innovation call as well. We've been upping our game in partnering with various different shared services, pictured here in this case Moto, where we've been making parking spaces available for car shares for both Moto and Evo at our SkyTrain stations. And in just the next coming days, before the end of the year, we will start a beta test, if you will, of our Bowen Island pilot for demand response deviated service using an app. Bowen Island's our testing ground for that. I know that we've been working very closely with folks, and if it works out on Bowen Island, I would hope that we can expand that service product elsewhere in our service territory. And these and the many things we've been doing in the system, I think are paying off in some of the data that we collect. TransLink has a mountain of data from its customer satisfaction survey that we've been doing for some 15 years. In the first quarter of this year, Coast Mountain Bus Company, for the first time ever, hit 8.0 out of 10. Now, that may or may not seem a modest achievement, but that number is very hard to achieve in our world. And I know that was very gratifying. And then in the second quarter of this year, TransLink overall rating from our customer satisfaction also hit an 8.0 for the first time ever over the 15 years. They tend to go up and down, things happen in the system, but it shows to me, it shows to our team we can aspire to improving those numbers, and I think it reinforces that the many things that we're doing for the customer experience are paying off. It also says we have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. Now, a lot of this, of course, we talk about this a lot here at the board and in the public, is our ridership improvement. And a lot of this just ultimately manifests itself in ridership. 6.9% year to date, that's through November. We just got the November numbers yesterday going forward. So this is, as we've been reporting, we've had record ridership in 2016, record ridership in 2017. We will, if we stay on track, have something like 430 million boardings by the end of the year, yet another record. I fully anticipate we will probably once again lead Canada and the United States in ridership growth when all the numbers are in next year throughout North America. It's an astonishing growth in ridership. I have never seen anything quite like this in my years in this business. It shows there is a huge untapped latent demand for our service, and my hat's off to the wisdom of the mayors in putting the plan together and the good work we've all done to make sure that we could be adding service to tapping into that need. That 430 million boardings by the end of the year represents something like 60 million additional annual trips compared to 2015. 60 million additional boardings on our system. Now, there's a double-edged sword to that. The double-edged sword to that rapid ridership growth is in fact outpacing our ability to put service out. And it's something we have to really be very mindful of. So even as we have been adding bus service, even as we have been adding SkyTrain service and Handy Dart service and C-Bus service, the system's actually getting more crowded going forward. And I know that's going to be a topic that we'll be taking up with the mayors and the board next year as we start thinking about how to fully fund the next phase of the mayor's plan. But we have to continue to be very attentive to those crowding issues. In fact, Albert's comments, I think, were spot on along those lines. Now, at the same time that we're improving customer experience and adding to the system, we're very mindful that we've got to maintain our assets in a state of good repair and modernize our assets. That's a major portion of our program, some $250 million a year in the capital program for state of good repair and modernizing. That keeps the system reliable, keeps the system safe, going forward. We have some 98 active projects so far this year going to ensure the state of good repair, to mobilize for the mayor's plan, improving the customer experience, and to upgrade the SkyTrain system. As you've been hearing from Hayden's reports periodically, significant amount of work being done on the right-of-way, on running rail and rail pad improvements, as well as they've stepped up their inspection program on their track, rail, and switches, which I think is paying off in reducing the number of significant delays in our system going forward. Our station modernization program is proceeding. Metrotown Station, Joyce Collingwood stations reopened this year. The Metrotown Station and Joyce Collingwood are really lovely stations that have added considerable capacity, and hopefully in the very short weeks ahead, we'll be finally opening up the commercial Broadway station. If you're running through the system now, all the hoardings down, you can start seeing what's been behind the wooden walls all of these many months. And the Surrey Central Station is also due to be opened up in the weeks ahead. So we'll have more on the exact opening dates for those stations. We also commenced our elevator replacement program earlier this year, and I've been very pleased with how the Granville project went forward. We were very concerned about the capacity of that station and closing off most of the elevating capacity in the station. It's one of our busiest stations, and of course during event days it can be very overwhelmed. It's gone very well so far, so that's hats off to the folks at SkyTrain and our capital programs to really manage the operation very carefully. Next year additional stations will begin going into construction. Similarly, we're doing a lot of work at the C-Bus terminals. We have a major project that we launched earlier this year at the Waterfront Station to expand and renovate that station as well. We have had trouble, Mike has reported, on the escalators at the Waterfront Station. I think we're up to 3 of the escalators are now operational, and those escalators, once the project is completed, I think at the end of next year, if I'm not mistaken, at Waterfront, we will improve the access. Another major milestone for the organization through CNBC is beginning to equip our buses with barriers to protect our operators. Long and coming major labor management discussion over the years for CNBC. I believe now 112 buses have been equipped with those barriers. So great milestone for CNBC and for the safety of our personnel. Very important is sustainability. In fact, in a couple of news stories just really yesterday and today, I think further help us focus on the need to be environmentally sustainable here at TransLink. On the one hand, the province's announcement yesterday for their carbon-free future, as well as I think a very troubling information that's come from various different observers with growing carbon emissions in the world that are far exceeding what the Paris Accords had been anticipating. So we at TransLink want to make sure that we are doing our part. By transporting a lot of people by public transit, we think we are taking cars off the road, but our rolling stock and our fixed facilities also emit carbon. So we have to be very mindful of that from our corporate responsibility standpoint. Major milestone in September of this year, this board and the Mayor's Council adopt policy direction for TransLink to reduce our carbon emissions by 80% by 2050 and to aspire to 100% renewable energy as well by 2050. Those are ambitious goals. Those goals, I think, are achievable, and with the report yesterday in the media about carbon emissions worldwide, all the more reason we need to be leaning in on that. Recently, we once again were identified as one of Canada's greenest employers. I think that's hats off to our organization and our sustainability program. Just last month, as you know, we had our first green bond issuance, a great piece of work for Rob and his team to make the green bond program go forward. He might want to talk about that when he's up to talk about the budget. But that's a major milestone. It caught a lot of attention in a lot of places, and a lot of those bonds were bought by companies right here in the lower mainland. Earlier this year, we completed our phase 1 assessment of our low carbon fleet strategy. We'll be launching our first trial of battery buses next year, and the second phase of the low carbon fleet strategy will come back to the board probably in the second quarter of this year. this is the time that we can start thinking about the inflection point, really, to start moving from carbon-based fuels to zero-emission buses. Looking ahead, finally, into next year, as I said, it's a very ambitious program and agenda. This just, scratches the surface. Some you'll see in Rob's presentation shortly. On the budget, we're delighted that we'll be able to add a lot of capacity on SkyTrain and the Expo Millennium Line when the new cars start hitting the system. You'll hear about more about that in a few minutes. The new B lines should be implemented in the fall of next year as well. 32 double-decker buses will start showing up on some of our suburban express buses, providing more capacity and comfort and a little bit of fun to our great customers on those routes. And we will continue to add service on Handy Dart and C-Bus when the third vessel is deployed. Infrastructure renewal, 5 bus exchanges will go into construction next year to update and improve the customer experience and the circulation at those facilities. South of Fraser Rapid Transit, there's been a lot of discussion around that. We will have a great discussion with the Mayor's Council next week on the next steps. Our commitment here is TransLink. We've committed to south of the Fraser, to Surrey and the Langleys, to implement 27 kilometers of rapid transit. Our commitment is once we get the direction from our policymakers, we will be implementing 27 kilometers of rapid transit as effectively and efficiently as is practicable going forward. So you'll hear, of course, many more discussions about that coming. On the customer experience, next year we're going to be going big in SkyTrain and improving signage, both inside at the platform level and outside the fare control with our passenger information signs, and we'll be improving the PA systems throughout the Expo Millennium Line as well. And we're looking to find ways to improve general customer connectivity from a cellular network, and you'll be hearing more about that shortly. And then lastly is the regional transportation plan. We got started a couple of months ago, a little bit behind the scenes in updating the 30-year long-range plan. That is going to be a major, major topic of our conversation, both at the policy level and through public consultation. As I said before, with that huge latent demand in our system that's driving ridership going forward, we need to figure out how to move forward in this region. And working collectively with all of our partners at all levels of government, here at the board, with the mayors and the general public, I'm confident that over the next 18 months or so, we can lay out a very active and robust vision for mobility in this region. That's my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Kevin. So before we continue, I wanted to say a few words as this is my last meeting. It's been an honor to serve here for 6 years, and it's gone by far too quickly. Quite honestly, I'm not ready to go, but I must leave. You're going to be throwing me out the door. Over these 6 short years, I've seen the worst and the best. I have seen referendums or plebiscites, and I've seen a transformation in this organization that is second to none. And so, anyway, this is what happens with women when they get emotional. This place is really transformed, and I think it's very exciting. There's been collaboration at all levels of government, which has allowed us to pave the way for where we're going today. And I think that there's just the sky's the limit for what we can do here. Board renewal is a healthy thing, and I wish it wasn't my turn to leave, but it is. It's in great hands, and I'm confident that the road ahead will be challenging, interesting, and rewarding. So I thank you to all my fellow board members and to all the committed members of TransLink. It's a special organization. So thank you. So on that, let's get back to business. I'm going to invite up Hayden Ashison, who's the interim president and general manager for BC. Marcella.
I just have one comment before crying along with you. We'll leave that for later. I really do. I think it's important to commend Kevin and all of his team and everybody here at TransLink. I think, Lorraine, you pointed it out that this has been a huge transformation. It started a few years ago. Last year we saw improvements. This year, I mean, your list of accomplishments, I defy any organization to be able to sit down and list the accomplishments that we just heard a touch of today from you, Kevin. So I sincerely compliment you, your leadership, your team's activity, everybody in this organization from top to bottom, because everybody was a part of it. So thank you.
You're here. All I can say is, we have about 7,300 employees here in our enterprise, and every one of them deserves that credit. It is you can't accomplish what I put up on the screen and all the many, many, many other things that are going on without each and every one of our employees being part of that. So it's what we're about here. We're an organization of people, and we're for people.
Thank you very much. Now, Hayden, I know you love all that, expression of emotion, so I'm going to turn it over to you and you can get us back onto the ground here.
Well,
Thanks, Hayden.
Well, thank you, and good morning. I have Mike Richard, sorry, Mike Richard, our VP of Operations, going to speak to a couple of slides. Sorry. And what an act to follow the chair's final comments. I remember Lori and us going through the Surrey Transit Center on the orientation. And it just seems like yesterday. We have 6 topics to speak to today, and of interest. They're all, they're all interesting, but the Mark III update in particular. Should have brought my water up with me. Our railway maintenance is, thanks very much, Gert. Thank you. Our railway maintenance, I report, excuse me. I report on it. I report on it every quarter. I'm sorry, gosh. The turnouts and components are to do with our switching system on the rail, and the plugs are to do with rail replacements. So if we find that we can't grind the rails, bring them up to our standard, we replace 20 or 40-foot sections, and so last quarter we did 14 rail. Very pleased about our on-time performance this last quarter, and in fact, year over year. The initiatives that were led under Vivian and our maintenance folks on sort of moving more to a preventative maintenance has been, I think, paying dividends. Mike will speak to a little of the initiatives they've done on the operations side. But year to date, Q3 shows our on-time performance at 96.3%, which exceeds our target of 95.4. In fact, all 3 months exceeded our targets. We're very pleased with that. On the maintenance side, much of our success with delays can be attributed to the rollout of our annual maintenance plan called the AMP. This is the first start of our asset management system as we start to move to preventative maintenance. The AMP has allowed us for better planning and scheduling of our maintenance activities, including preventative repairs and failures. And we believe that this has had an effect on the on-time performance. And in fact, there are tachometers on every one of our cars. The tachometers track the mileage, the kilometers, and also send speed information. On our Mark 1 and Mark 2s, we noticed a significant deterioration and failures of the tachometers going forward to a point where we're getting significant delays, probably about 6 months ago, 9 months ago. Decision was made to replace all to invest in buying new tachometers. We replaced them on the Mark 1s and the Mark 2s, and we've had a significant improvement, and that's another reason for the delays improvement. Mike will speak to a little bit of initiatives on the STAs.
So some of the things that we've done, excuse me, we've hired some more people and we put them out in the peak periods, Monday to Friday specifically. We put extra staff in some of the busier locations and the areas where we have lots of switches and where things might go wrong. If they do go wrong, have the highest impact. We also, we're fully reviewing all of our delays 16 minutes or greater, but a deeper dive into anything that's 30 minutes or greater with a view to what worked, what didn't, how do we improve. Year to date, we've had 44 initiatives coming out of those reviews that we've implemented. They're either procedural, they might be minor schedule adjustments, There might be repositioning staff, but they're all leading to the focus of keeping the system running. And the last thing that we try to have our staff focus on in the rush hours particularly is spend a little bit more time up at the platform level so they can get to the trains if there is a train issue quicker than if we have to send them from somewhere else in the station. So those are things that are working, and I think we're seeing some really positive results as a result of that.
Thanks, Mike. On our safety indicators, and as I mentioned at our last board meeting, we're doing a complete metric review, and we'll have more updated and more specific safety slides going forward in 2019. Year over year, it's a good news story. We've had improvement in our safety parameters. However, the not so good news is that the trend on 2 out of the 3 for Q2 to Q3 has deteriorated. Our lost time accidents increased from 14 to 11. Most of the causes of the lost time accidents are falls from elevation, repetitive motions, top upper body injury. We do full investigations on these. We try to find the root cause. We try to put new procedures in the workplace, and we're hoping long term that we'll see some results. A little disappointing for this last quarter. We're hoping it's not a trend that's going to continue, but go the other way. Year over year, employee assaults. We've improved our record. We're doing better safety investigations. We're completing the safety investigations. We're putting in corrective actions. Our security committee works to identify areas that cause assaults, putting in preventative measures. We have an employee rapid risk training called Be on the Lookout for Assailants, and that's something that we try to have all our employees aware of. Our lost times, we have a safety first campaign that's been in place for quite some time, and hopefully it's bringing us some results as well. If you recall, last board meeting we talked about the Kingston testing facility. The first 5,000 kilometers now of our new trains are tested at Kingston. That's made quite a difference for us. Once the testing is complete, the trains are shipped to Burnaby on 4 separate flatbed trucks, unloaded using 2 cranes. The trains are joined together and moved to OMC1 where they are assembled and commissioned. So the commissioning process is really 3 stages. You can see on the slide, stage 1, 80 kilometers. Stage 2 includes running the train a total of 8 hours during non-peak revenue service. The train does not transport passengers. This stage is typically broken down into 2 4-hour sessions over 2 days. If additional testing is required, then we start the process over again. Stage 3 involves running the train in full revenue service during peak and non-peak hours with passengers on board. The train must successfully run for 2,000 kilometers with a limited number of faults. We have an STA on board in case we have a problem. You'll see that train 1, and I'll speak to it in a second. Train 1, which arrived in September, is just starting stage 2 this morning, as a matter of fact. So train 1 arrived in September. It was assembled. It's begun the process of commissioning. Stage 1 complete, as I mentioned, gone into stage 2. Train 2 arrived in Burnaby on November 24th, and it started the testing and the commissioning. Train 3 and train 4, pretty well on time. We're running about, excuse me, we're running about 60 to 90 days late on the deliveries, which is pretty good considering the challenges that we've had. Mike, do you want to talk about the road?
So once we complete the stage 3 testing with these new trains, our plan is to insert them, because we'll do these one at a time. So once a train finishes or satisfies stage 3, we'll add it to peak service. We call them trippers, so they'll run an extra trip in the rush hours, in the peak of the rush hours, to give us an extra 525 passenger capacity positions per train. So we'll do that with each of the trains. They'll just run these extra trips until we get 4. Once we get 4 trains, then we'll affect a schedule adjustment. And we have to wait for 4 trains because of the interlining and the connections of the Millennium and Expo line. So when we get 4, we'll affect the schedule change, and then that'll allow us to increase our capacity even further. It looks like we're targeting 3 schedule changes in 2019, 1 in April, 1 in September, 1 in December. And at which point then we'll have all 28, the first 28 cars in service for about a 14% increase in capacity going forward.
Thanks, Mike. An initiative came out of an employee engagement initiative on enhancement for the SGAs on the line. Mike led the initiative with a lot of help from BTS, and as Mike was up here today, I thought I'd have him just speak to it and share with you a real customer enhancement, we believe.
So, and Hayden said it was an employee engagement initiative, and what we did is we had some focus groups with our frontline station attendants and field supervisors. We looked and we talked with them about what kind of tool would make their job easier out there. What types of things that they have to deal with the customers all the time, where they have to take them to a phone or take them somewhere else to get information that is required. We did several focus groups. We had some great feedback, and we identified several items that they call upon almost daily. So we looked at how we could get something in their hands, and at one point we considered giving them a tablet or something, and the staff told us they don't want to carry another piece of equipment. They said, you know, give us something that we can take advantage of what we already have. Almost everybody has a smartphone, so working with them and some great work with the BTS folks here, which I'd really like to acknowledge the effort, the brilliant effort here. We put together an STA job aid is what we call it, and what it is it's a smartphone application. It has things like real-time train location, service alerts, it has trip planning, next train, next bus information, Google Maps, Google Translate, guideway maps, and an STA handbook, which they can use for troubleshooting or correcting faults in the trains. Also includes some of the nearby attractions, various stations and whatnot. So just a tremendous effort to put it together. It didn't really cost us anything but staff time. And we've got close to 80% of our close to 300 frontline staff have signed up and are using this regularly since the 1st of December. So we're getting really good feedback, and we're starting to plan what we might do next with this, because it is limitless. And I think our next steps going into next year, we might get into some online reporting, incident reporting, rather than have everybody have to fill out reports by hand. We can fill them out, send them automatic or directly through links and whatever. So very well received, and I think that it's again the folks at BTS did a fabulous job putting this together for us, far better than what we ever expected when we started.
Thanks, Mike. The customer communication upgrade is part of a TransLink and SkyTrain commitment to improve the customer experience on our system. Over the next 18 months, customers are going to get a better real-time service information. The new signs will be better sounding announcements. They'll be easier to read. More security measures at all Expo and Millennium line stations. We're adding approximately 280 new customer information signs, including 140 next train signs on the platforms and 140 new SkyTrain status signs on platforms, both in and outside the station. The first exterior station signs in our system. The launch of the program begins with Lougheed and Inman stations. The install is planned for January 2019. And that's our report.
Hayden, thank you very much. Any questions for Hayden in regards to his report? I have an idea for your app. I'd like to have a copy of that on mine.
It's a cool app, isn't it?
It's cool. Yeah. Tony.
Thanks for the report, Hayden. I'm sure the service rollouts and some of the other initiatives are really going to have a positive effect on customer satisfaction. But having said that, the September numbers year to date showed a significant increase for SkyTrain, 8.3 versus 8.1, and for West Coast Express, 8.9 versus 8.4. Just your thoughts in terms of, is there a variable you think that's driving this, or is it a combination of things? Any thoughts you might be prepared to share?
Do you have some thoughts?
Certainly, the attention that's put on the customer experience is catching on. I think a lot of people are buying into it. I think the customer first committees that we've formed and some of the things that we're working towards, I think that people are more attentive to the customer needs now than we've ever seen. I also think that we're hiring really good people now compared to some of our earlier hires. I think we struggled a bit with the profile. We didn't really know what a good SkyTrain attendant would be because it's technical, it's customer service, it's security, it's first aid, and find somebody with all of those was difficult. And I think we have a good profile, and we're recruiting really, really good people, young people today.
You know, my thought is there's an awareness throughout the whole company, even in maintenance, on the focus on the customer, and I think that's been a change that's happened in the last couple of years.
Thank you, Andy, and then I'm going to go to Sarah next.
Hi, thanks. The communication stuff, I'm really looking forward, and I'm glad to hear that in your report. I think it's going to make a big difference to the traveling customer. I do have a question, though, about the Mark IIIs. You mentioned in your report they're a bit delayed, 60 to 90 days. Is that an issue on production, or
That's a Bombardier issue, and we've been working with them. In fact, we're hopeful that by the time we come to train 14, we're going to have that reduced quite a bit. We spent a fair amount of time with Bombardier. We sent our folks down there. Their senior executive team came out and met with us 2 weeks ago. They put a lot of quality assurance in place to make sure that there's not going to be delays along this testing and commissioning process. The Kingston track has made a significant difference as well. So it's with Bombardier, but they're very attentive to shortening up that time.
We also have a recovery plan that Bombardier prepared that we think will shorten that delay significantly by the middle of the next delivery order.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy, and Sarah.
Well, it's very exciting times at SkyTrain. It's very impressive. I have two questions. One is about it's really good to see that the focus on reducing delays. That's also got to help people's confidence when they're choosing their mode of transportation. And just a question, Mike, you talked both about your preventative maintenance and then adding people in strategic locations, and I was wondering which one you thought contributed to reducing the delays the most, or whether it was really a combination of the two. And then my second question was about the safety indicators, and your overall change in the year is good, and as you said, Hayden, not so good if they go the other way. And I was interested in commenting on how you were viewing the safety culture within your organization and the embracing of improvement.
Mike may disagree with me coming from the operations side, but I think the significant improvement on our service delays has been through the maintenance. They become much more proactive rather than reactive. We're really encouraging that. And as we start to move towards an asset management program, of course, the annual maintenance plan is sort of the cornerstone to begin with that. So I think that is beginning of it. Certainly being able to start the trains earlier and those issues and helping with those service delays make a difference as well. But I give a lot of credit to the maintenance folks that are very focused on that. A safety culture, and as I've reported to the board before, we're revamping our safety management system. We've just hired a new director of safety that will come on board. We're having a safety initiative at the rail company yet to be rolled out within the next 2 to 3 weeks, which is going to be completely system-wide. We're going to have a significant impact on that. We're doing a lot of work on it. So we're not there. We're always improving on safety, and we're going to continue to do that.
Thank you. I think we all appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And now I have Jack and then Marcella. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. The smartphone app for the employees intrigued me, and it's great that you put the tools in the hands of the people that need them. Yeah. As far as the customer experience, is there an app or is there any work towards giving a nice handy app for customers to, I went on and downloaded the app for parking because I have to do the park and ride, and it's one app, and then looking online to find the schedules is another place to go. Is there some work being contemplated on improving the customer experience?
Kevin could probably.
Thanks.
Yeah, that good question, Mayor. That's something that we very much have our eye on, and it's kind of a buzz issue in the industry. It's sort of this phrase called mobility as a service. So when I referenced in my year in review the open innovation call, that was actually the theme of the open innovation call. Eventually, how can you get to idealize a one-stop shop with a really good on your mobile device where you can plan your trip, you can book a trip, you can even pay for your trip, totally online. Within 5 or 10 years, I think that will be everywhere in the world. Transit agencies throughout the world will have those types of features. In the meantime, we just need to be continuing to find ways to step up our game and improve things like our alerts, improve our real-time information, create a mobile trip planner, which one of my board members asked us about quite a bit. So those are the types of things we're looking at, but those are a little bit stepwise until you try to find some kind of overall integrated kind of app, not unlike the visual from what our tech folks and SkyTrain put together that Hayden showed you. Thank you.
Thank you, and Marcella.
It was great to see all the improvements being made on the maintenance side and the implication that it has, obviously, with respect to service and customers, etc. We're aware that for some period of time there's an issue with aging employees and information transfer not happening or was not happening in the past. How do you get information in people's heads for all these critical systems down so that as you train and hire new employees, it gets passed on and you have consistency around both maintenance, safety, activities, etc. So I'm just wondering, I know you've been working on that, and I'm just wondering where you are.
It's been on our risk registry. Part of our realignment of the maintenance organization was to help with that. That's where most of our sort of older employees with tremendous experience on that side of it need to be replaced. So hopefully the org change and the focuses and grooming people up in successorship have a better focus on that as well.
We also had, for about 18 months, maybe 2 years, we had 3 technical writers that we brought in to work with subject matter experts to start documenting, particularly the engineering, the maintenance side of the business. They accomplished 100% what they set out to accomplish, whatever that is. I mean, 100% of, I'm sure there's a whole lot more yet, but we're a lot better than we were as a result of those 3 people we brought in.
The control center, and that reports to Mike, is always a concern for us as well with aging employees, and it's about a 4-year training program for that. So Mike is continually bringing people in to train. 2-year training program.
2 years.
Mike,
Yeah.
sorry.
Great. You good, Marcella? Yeah, okay, thank you. So Anne and then Marie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to come back to safety. And I think your report and the other reports we're seeing today demonstrate to the board how commitment and focus and resources drive positive change. This is a story of great and positive change. Safety maybe not so much. So I think the message I hope you hear from this board is that our confidence that the same focus and commitment will bring safety outcomes that are better next time we meet. And to the extent that anything needs reinforcing or help or assistance from board or outside eyes, if safety is one of those areas, then our commitment is to make sure that happens. So I look forward to the next report and seeing what the new person you've hired and new strategies and new commitment brings in terms of outcomes.
No, we appreciate the board support. We are focused, I am focused on safety and we'll continue to do so.
Thanks, Anne. Thanks, Hayden. Marie.
Thank you, Lorraine. Just a question regarding the new Mark III train. Is there anything that's been surprising or concerning in relation to what you've discovered about it during the first 2 stages of its testing?
Not that I'm aware of.
It's far better than it was with our other orders of Mark III trains as a result of that 5,000 kilometer testing we're having Bombardier do in Kingston. So the train is coming, it's getting to us largely ready to run,
So
whereas finding the problems when they get here.
So in terms of the the time frame after receipt to getting it into service isn't concerning to you, based on your experience with
From
this
the time it's arrived to
Yes.
us? Yes, the Kingston 5000 track was really was a game changer for us. And we received these vehicles in very good shape. A lot of the problems and faults were dealt with down there, close to the manufacturer. So that it's come up to us now, and it's more of assembly and putting on the components. So what
We
important
do.
to me, it's gone very well.
And we do expect the delivery to in-service time to be shortened as a result of this,
Yeah.
as we get some experience, because we've only got the one train, well, now two. So as we get some experience, I'm sure that time that it's here versus going into service will be shortened significantly based on the experience.
Okay,
Murray,
thank you.
I would say, because I think Mike and Hayden are being even a tad modest. The prior order, the cars that were purchased through the Evergreen project that was overseen by Vivian and the team was a troubled order. It was troubled at the manufacturing plant, and it was troubled when the vehicles got here. And I think it was fairly rocky as you guys were commissioning the vehicles, and we had challenges. This order has been night and day. And I think that's a combination of the lessons learned at SkyTrain in terms of just the techniques and the project management that we brought to bear, and the lessons learned that then we brought to executive management and Bombardier all across, whether at the very senior levels or at the plant level. They've been like hawks at the plant level, with very good engagement with the people that are in charge of the order, and it's really showing up in a much better quality build for us. Long way to go. So we have a year close to until all the trains are fully commissioned in service. But it's been a much improved process, and that test track I think has a lot to do with it. It's a good investment by us and by our supplier.
Well, the only reason I ask is I realize the subtleties of operating an automated system like we have, where there aren't eyes on it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There are remotely, but meter by meter along a track. I'm impressed with the clockwork with which it operates, and the fact that these cars or these trains have to come into service on a system that's operating in an automated way. Leaves that much more care and attention important at the front end to make sure that there isn't glitches that then hold up an entire system over a train not operating well. So I appreciate that, and I'm encouraged by your response.
Okay, thanks. I hope we'll report the same next meeting.
Okay, well, I think that probably wraps up your presentation and all the questions. Thank you very much. Thank you, and I'm going to invite Mike McDaniel up as the President and General Manager of the Coast Mountain Bus Company. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Desmond, and members of the public. This is 3 days short of 5 months for me, and I'm very proud to be here to present, but who's counting? Very proud to be here to present my second President's Report here to the TransLink board. Just going over the agenda here, I'm going to cover a number of things, safety trends, winter preparedness, a update on CNG, access transit, and of course what we've talked about a couple of times, transit operator recruitment and training. So turning our attention here first, that you see on the screen, keeping customers and employees safe, as I mentioned at the October board meeting, is a top priority for myself and the entire team at CMBC. You see two slides in front of you, one for onboard and one for cyclist injuries. For the time period of January 1st to September 30th, years 2014 to 2018. I'm pleased to see a slight downturn in each of these incidents due to the many safety initiatives, employee programs, and customer campaigns that we put in place over time. For instance, we have a working group focused on onboard injuries. They've recently expanded their scope to include collision reduction and customer injuries. We've also been working obviously very closely with TransLink Communications on a variety of awareness campaigns. Obviously the most recent one is winter preparedness, which I'll touch on in a little bit. For cyclist incidents, we saw a positive dip in 2015, you'll see, obviously an increase in 2016. We've leveled off from 2017 to today. We continue to address this issue through education, awareness, policy development, and hopefully some technology increases as we go into the future. Overall, the downward trend is positive, but when it comes to safety, we are looking at these numbers every day, and we're looking for improvement every day, and we will continue to. Now, turning our attention to employee safety, violent incident prevention training is now complete and has helped to decrease operator assaults across the board. Mentioned earlier, we now have approximately 112 buses equipped so far with the operator barriers, many more to come in 2019. Recently, CMBC implemented a change to also help operators after difficult situations en route. Here, a transit security officer will meet a bus operator right away en route and deliver a wellness check. This and other initiatives have helped to lower our WorkSafe BC lost time incident claims. We currently have 238 to date, representing about 0.04% of our workforce. We're seeing improvements year over year, but are committed to bringing these numbers down even more. Two main categories for injuries include somewhat obviously motor vehicle collisions, but possibly not so obvious mental health claims. Looking to improve, we are working towards ensuring every bus operator is offered and receives a diffuser after a traumatic situation en route, and of course refresher training to provide it to operators with higher rates of incidents. Now, as mentioned, turning our attention to another part of our safety plans, winter preparedness. Our snow plans are up to date and ready to activate. Our TCOM group, Transit Communications, reached out to all Metro Vancouver municipalities to ensure the same priority corridors will be maintained as last year. They've also tested weather stations as well as contractor call-out systems. New for this year, we have 2 new routes in North Vancouver that will be part of our continuing test on our reinforced tire socks. That'll be Route 210 at Upper Lynn Valley and Route 232 Grouse Mountain. That'll add to the Burnaby Mountain routes from last year. Also new to ensure customer information teams are fully up to date and customers are fully up to date. One of our team members from CI will join in at TCOM during snow events. And a Handy Dart adverse weather plan was also developed in collaboration with First Transit, noting that staff on snow days will be doubled on each vehicle. Now, just bringing your attention here to a CNG supply update. Given the Enbridge natural gas line rupture near Prince George on October 9th, I wanted to provide an update regarding some contingency planning in the unlikely case that we are affected this winter. Now, Fortis has advised us that they are actively monitoring the usage, and only a significant weather event resulting in extreme sub-zero temperatures across the province would cause a problem in CNG supply. But despite these predictions and the unlikely chance of an issue, CMBC has still developed fulsome plans. We are an organization that prepares, and so we have prepared. By way of background, 17% of our fleet, 243 vehicles, are run on CNG. They operate out of Hamilton, Surrey, and Port Coquitlam Transit Centres. Operations and maintenance plans have been developed to address varying scenarios of supply loss across each of those depots. Services not affected either way include trolley routes, C-Bus, Blue Bus, Community Shuttle, and of course Handy Dart. Obviously, looking at our facilities as well, we're focused on lowering our temperatures and have done so 2 degrees since that rupture in October. And of course, we've prioritized work, including things like steam cleaning and painting that uses natural gas as well. Moving across to an Access Transit update, travel training sessions, as you see, we completed 9 and approximately 1,000 participants have gone through those. That will really expand in 2019. And that review, that program is actually under review from our Access Transit Steering Committee for future improvements as well. For a Handy Dart update, we are following the transition, of course, in July 1st to First Transit, and we're working towards improving on-time performance, and of course, stakeholder engagement. And recently, we had a variety of Handy Dart stakeholders actually come in and visit dispatch and scheduling at First Transit to improve the awareness by all involved of what happens. Now, shifting to transit operator recruitment. What I'd like to say, you see in the bottom of your left screen, Together All the Way. This is an example of Together All the Way. Our transit operator hiring committee, made up of teams at CNBC and TransLink, put together 2 events, October 27th and November 17th. 359 applicants passed to the next state of our hiring process on the October 27th date, and 308 passed at the November 17th date. To attract applicants, we advertised through media events, radio, billboard, Google and Facebook, and social media posts as well. Currently, there are 786 successful applicants in our hiring process right now. All of our teams continue with these efforts as we need to hire the remaining part for 2019 and approximately 500 operators for the following 2 years to meet demands of expansion. Now, after we hire all of the operators, we need to train all of our operators. As mentioned previously, our delivery schedule and our training model will shift. And it will shift from a 16 maximum participant into 24 students every single class, every 2 weeks starting, all the way through to lead up to the expansion in September of 2019. Now that does conclude my report, and although I've been here 3 days short of 5 months, I do want to thank all of our CNBC staff that has worked tirelessly over 2018. We're very excited for 2019. And we're here for any questions that you may have for today.
Great. Thank you. Questions? Andy?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. It wasn't something you verbally report on, but in your report about the battery buses that are coming next year, just out of curiosity, which vehicles are they, and have they actually been used anywhere else as prototypes, or are these a new prototype that we are doing, I believe, in conjunction with 2 of the Canadian cities?
There is a trial going on. I'm going to defer in a second here to Kevin, and he'll answer that. But there is a trial that was originally 3 participants. We are a single participant of that trial right now. And in terms of the actual fleet, I'll let Kevin answer that.
This is not bleeding edge at this point in time. There are 4 buses. 2 are from New Flyer, which is a Canadian company. 2 are from Nova, which is a Canadian company. So New Flyer has deployed some of these buses elsewhere. Nova, I think Nova they've been running some of the service in Montreal. These are fast charge buses. So they deploy at the 2 terminals, in this case on our Route 100 in New Westminster and in Vancouver. They connect to a charging station and charge up in from 5 to 7 minutes or so. So the industry is at a point at which it's not experimental anymore. So our job and our pilot at this point in time is to give us a chance to get comfortable with the technology and understand it better, to set us up really very well in next decade when we can go full into this.
Thank you, Larry, and then I'm going to go to Karen.
Mike, in the great recruitment that's going on for bus drivers, are we making improvements and advances in gender parity and visible minorities, more mix of visible minorities? Is that an objective, and are we making some improvements?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks, Larry. The challenge that we have right now is that we don't have a developed diversity plan, but we are right on the edge of that on internally as well as recruiting our future employees. That'll be a push for 2019. The big push in the last about 6 to 7 weeks was to get back on track for our numbers to ensure that we could meet recruitment. We did much more of a mass recruitment call versus any particular targets. We'll be looking at that as we go forward, and that's what the committee will be working on.
I ask because when you get urgent about hiring a lot of people and there's deadlines, sometimes you forget about those objectives. But once those hires happen, that's going to be your mix for a long time. So it's very important, I think, not to leave that behind in the process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Karen?
And Mike, thanks for the great report. I just had a quick question about the bus training simulator. Is there which is very interesting, is there any sort of long-range thinking that could be used for ongoing training for existing operators in the future?
Yeah, we're still working. It's a good question. We're obviously our team just went down the other day. Actually, are there I think right now. We're still working exactly how we're going to use that in training. What we do know is that we will do it obviously in refresher training. En masse, the challenge will be we have one simulator. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we can plug it into something that is sustainable from a volume standpoint. So we're still working through it. It is still a great idea, but we're going to work through what we can do on capacity. But refresher training will be probably the predominant use for it. We still obviously need fleet on the ground to train lots of numbers of people.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you, and Marie.
Thank you, Lorraine, and thanks, Mike, a good report. Just have a question regarding the table that we received that shows some stats around your operation, and it relates to specifically to Handy Dart and supplemental taxi service. I noticed that Handy Dart trips delivered is lower than the year-to-date target for the end of the third quarter, and that supplemental taxi trips delivered are much higher. In fact, they're at the end of the third quarter higher than what we had anticipated for the whole year. Can you just maybe give some background as to reasons why we're experiencing what we're experiencing? It goes back to a question I asked, I think, at the last meeting about there being sort of a latent demand for Handy Dart service in the region, and we added service, and we're continuing to add service, but whether, I guess the staging of how we add that service may be something we should talk about based on some of these stats.
Yeah, so thanks, Maria. I think I'll answer the first one first. Is obviously we'll see fluctuations in use between Handy Dart and taxis, but the predominant reasons that you see reflected in those reports is with MVT transitioning out and prior to even first transitioning in, MVT lost a lot of staff. It was just a bit of a part of an outgoing transition. All of the staff that were left migrated over to First Transit, and so we ended the contract with a deficit, and we started the contract with a deficit, and that was the primary effect in regards to ridership on the Handy Dart system. Obviously, when those fluctuations happen, we make that up through taxis. And so that's why you see the fluctuation in there. We're making a lot of headway on that, though. We've been spending a lot of time with First Transit, ensuring that they're getting their hiring back up, they're getting their scheduling all in order. The transition has gone, I would say, well, but not perfect. And so we're pushing them very hard, and we're seeing a lot of our indicators, most of them, about 3/4 of them, trending in the right direction, but they're not where they need to be. In terms of overall ridership of Handy Dart, that is an ongoing conversation. What is the demand, and what are we trying to target? But that's probably a longer discussion.
Right. So the reason I'm asking it is I know that from time to time we receive delegations, and the delegations, I would say that the average Access Transit customer would rather take the Handy Dart bus than a taxi. At least that's my impression. That's probably a little bit of a generalization, but when I see the numbers, then it kind of is working against sort of providing the best customer experience, and that's. But I appreciate the response, and so you're anticipating when we get deeper into the contract that it'll normalize, and the numbers that we had projected as budget would be more evident in the reports you'll bring forward in the future.
I do anticipate that, and I think what I'd add as well is that I think you're correct in the assessment. I think more riders would like to take the Handy Dart service, but I think what we're looking at is why is that? And primarily it's around experience and it's around training of staff. Right. And so although we are trying to right size the ratio as you've described, we're also working with the taxi associations significantly to improve what that experience is for our customers on the taxi service. The taxi service is a need. We will minimize it, but we need it. And so we want it to be a great experience for our customers there as well. And so we're working on that front as well.
Well, and I think the backdrop to my questioning is really saying that, I think we've moved a long way in the right direction in relation to satisfying the people who use the Handy Dart service, this Access Transit service. And I want to continue on that trend. And so the objective is to ensure that our service delivery continues to satisfy the experience side of it as well, not just the trip side. So I appreciate the response. So thanks, Mike.
Thank you. So I think, Mike, you're done. Now, you didn't tell us about the decorated buses and how many are out there on the roads. I've seen one.
I think there is 3. Is there 3 decorated buses? There's 2. They're either giving me the peace sign or they're telling me there's 2. We'll have to work out our signals. There's 2. I think there's 1 shuttle and 1
Regular.
40-footer, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Well, they're very
But
cute.
They're very bright, they're very
They're
cute.
very cute. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. And congratulations on your almost 5 months. All right. I'd like to invite Barry Cross, the interim chief officer. Welcome, Barry.
Make sure that's working. Good. Put my spectacles on. And, okay, just a bit of an update on some of the activities we've had throughout the year and that we're finishing this year with. The first thing that I wanted to speak about was Operation Railsafe. For those that don't know what Operation Railsafe is, the Trans Police is a member of an international organization for operational awareness programs on rail. That's tied into the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and there's a police advisory group that is really through North America, Canada, and internationally as well. And what we end up doing is setting specified dates throughout the year where our members get out in high visibility vests. We get out there to make sure that we have a great appearance on the system, that we're creating and enhancing passenger reassurance, but we're also collaborating and sharing information on what the impact of that type of deployment does for not just reassurance, but also our own communication between agencies and internally amongst TransLink. So we do that in conjunction with Transit Security, with the STAs, and we coordinate those types of responses throughout the year. Some of those are on specific dates that are important, milestone dates for events in the past, but that is really something that we do on a regular basis. The other thing that we do regularly and have just completed as we're getting into this time of year when the sun goes down much more early in the day and it's dark and it's inclement and it's hard for people to be seen, we're very, very concerned about our passengers, the complete journey. That's their journey to bus loops to stations and when they leave to go off to wherever point B is for them. So we engaged with ICBC as we do annually to hand out reflectors to passengers. It's a really good opportunity for us to engage with the passengers. We have our neighborhood police officers out there as well. They get little reflectors that they can put on, purses, umbrellas, bags, backpacks, things of that nature. But we're really trying to enhance their awareness so that they can be as safe as they can be, because just like you and I, a lot of people are focused on this these days. They get off the bus and they're trying to figure out where their next friend is or what the next appointment is, and they head out across the street or across the bus loop and they put themselves at jeopardy. So we want to do our very best to enhance their safety and security, and this is a really good opportunity for us to do that. And certainly our engagements in safety outreach as the inclement weather is here. We were -4 degrees this morning, yesterday morning, making sure that we're helping those individuals who are homeless as well that we end up encountering in and around the transit system, and making sure that they also get to the services that they require when they require that. The other one I want to talk about, and we've talked about this periodically, but I'm talking about it specifically today because we've had a lot of work done with TransLink marketing and communications on how to enhance the awareness of our passengers on how to contact us and contact TransLink if they need assistance. So what you see on the left side is the boards that are at most of the stations. You'll see the red highlighted box. Thanks to Board Director Marcella Zell, who at the last meeting said, hey, wouldn't it be nice if you had the 877777 highlighted more. More work to be done on that. I'll speak about that in a second. But what we have now are dedicated spaces at all transit hubs that provide that number available to our staff. I'll segue into another piece on our texting in a second. But this has been a really great project. Very, very pleased with the support we've had from TransLink Marketing. And as you'll see on the second one, we recognize that a lot of people, again, are focused on their smartphone while they're in the train on their transit from A to B. But the one thing we do know that they do is they look up periodically at that map to see what the next station is. And to secure that real estate right next to it, with our text number, we felt was the next best place to have that to create awareness. So that's a piece of work that we managed to get completed this year, and we'll be continuing to work with TransLink Communications and Marketing on how to enhance that as we go forward. So I mentioned, excuse me, a good segue to the texting number that we have. What the bar graph tells you here, and it's not meant to be an eye chart, I apologize, but really what it's telling you is that we have had an increase in text reporting from last year to this year, and I think a lot of that has to do with the type of marketing we're doing, that people are becoming more aware of what that text number can do for them, and creating the confidence that they can contact us if they have an issue. And I don't just mean from a crime perspective. You know, we are looking at the whole customer service component of what that does, and we get a lot of text from customers just on disorder issues or something spilled in a train, and we pass that along to other parts of the enterprise so that we can make sure those are addressed as quickly as possible to enhance that customer experience. Text reporting for us is up 82% over 2017, so this has been a huge success for us. The number of text conversations, so that is when we actually engage with somebody in a conversation over an issue that they have, 2017 between Q1 and Q3, 2,348 text conversations. The same period of time this calendar year was 4,282 text conversations. And what's really key to that is that of that total number of conversations, we convert about 70% of those into a police file. And that means something that we actually follow up to. We either follow up by phone or we follow up in person with the customer that's contacted us to deal with that issue. The balance, as I say, of those other disorder or environmental issues that we pass along to those other parties responsible throughout the enterprise. My opportunity to brag a little bit. Very, very proud about all of our staff, whether they wear a uniform or whether they work in a support position in the office. But November the 22nd was Police Honors Night in Victoria at the Lieutenant Governor's residence, Government House. Lieutenant Governor Janet Austin was present amongst other policing leaders and policing peers. We had three of our members, awarded. One for an Award of Valor, that was Constable Ryan Morrison, who's the smiling one in the middle. Just to give you an idea of what the award was about, in November 2017, he approached a vehicle, recognized that the driver was extremely intoxicated. He also noted a 2-year-old who was fastened in a seatbelt, not in a car seat in the car, and the driver attempted to flee. Constable Morrison launched himself inside the driver's window, struggled with the driver, trying to stop the vehicle, was dragged for a period of time, and managed to overcome the driver, get the vehicle stopped, put him under arrest, and save that child from what could have been a disastrous result should there have been a vehicle collision down the road. The other two officers, Officer Alexander Hamilton and Carl Pradanovic, the two bookends there, dealt with a young lady, October 2017, who was suffering from a mental illness, and she was attempting suicide. She had wandered out beyond the barriers, out onto the elevated guideway, and the constables attended, engaged her in conversation, and as she was falling forward off of the guideway, they launched themselves, grabbed her, and dragged her back to safety, putting themselves at considerable risk as well. So I had somebody the other day said, you know, this is like superhero stuff, and I really do believe that. I mean, these officers and others do this kind of thing because it's part of what their job is, but also because they really and truly do want to help people. And so that's great to be able to celebrate those types of events. The last one I want to talk about is on the right. And this is Sergeant Wendy Hawthorne. Many of you might know Wendy or know of Wendy, but she's been with the enterprise for 33 years. She started as a special provincial constable back in the day, and her expertise in graffiti, recognizing graffiti and looking at how to deal with graffiti on transit systems has her recognized not just locally, provincially, nationally, but internationally. And she was given an award of excellence for leadership because of all of that work she's done throughout her career. And I will say, I date myself back to the early 90s when I was a very young police officer and dealing with some of those issues in my previous life. And Wendy was that contact. And Wendy is the only person I know locally who has maintained that type of expertise, and very, very proud that she's part of the transit police and part of the TransLink family. And I will say she's retiring at the end of the year, so this is going to be a huge loss for us. We're talking about succession planning and things, and there's a lot of experience walking out the door. Which is another great segue. So here we are looking at recruitment and promotions. We're very, very pleased to have promoted a number of officers this year. We're looking at succession planning. We've got new sergeants, new staff sergeants. We're looking at a lot of retirements. It's just that cycle that we're in. But we have to prepare for what that is going to look like for us for the future and make sure that we're recruiting top recruits and doing that in a very thoughtful way. Giving great consideration to what diversity looks like for us. Our diversity in women, Larry, you were talking about diversity. We've gone from 16% to 19% this past year. 19 is the national average. We actually hired this past year at a rate of 24%. So we're moving in that right direction, and we're hoping to keep that going to enhance the type of service delivery that we have for our traveling public. And that is my report. So I'm open to questions.
Well, Barry, before we move on and speak any more about questions, I just want to acknowledge the fact that you were awarded 2 awards this year. And I just want to congratulate you and say all the best from the board. You received the Order of Merit of Police Forces and also the Special Olympics Canada Rob Plunkett Law Enforcement Torch Run Award. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Great honor. Yeah, thank you. So questions, Larry?
Special congratulations on your Order of Merit. That's a huge award, and we should all be proud of it. I noticed in the report that the notices of violation of people that are getting in and out of the fare gates illegally, while ours has gone down, the provincial has gone up, and yet we've done all this work to make it easier to pay, and I would have thought we would have generally seen things going down. Why do you think we still have this incidence of people trying to escape paying? I mean, you know, I could say it as a big thing, we all want to save money, but why, it would seem to me we should be seeing a downtrend in this. What would your comments be?
Well, my comments would be, I mean, the fare infraction notices are going down. I think from that perspective, at the time, that was the only avenue we had to deal with fare evasion. The violation ticket was a new legislation that came our way, so it's a new power that we have. We never had the power to be able to stop somebody after they pushed through the fare gate before. We do now. It is much more overt. Certainly since the advent of the Compass card, you know, it's made it easier for people to pay. I think we are encouraging more people to do that. I mean, I think the system has accomplished that. What you're seeing as an increase on the violation ticket really is us being able to address what has been going on in the past. And certainly since the fare gates closed. So it is a new tool for us. It's been very effective. We get a lot of really good comments from passengers that are in and around the fare gates coming and going, thanking us for addressing those individuals that in the past they saw getting away with it, and we just were powerless to be able to deal with it. So this new legislation, this new power has given us that tool, and that's why that number is up, certainly, yeah.
Great. Anne, thank you.
Thank you for your report. Your officers, your staff deal with a wide range of situations and people every day. How do they look after themselves? How do they keep themselves in good shape mentally and physically?
Well, from a physical perspective, I can say that, boy, has there been a change in policing in 32 years. You know, you just look at the physicality of the police officers that are out there working now. I see the applicants that are walking through the door. If I was competing against them now, I think I would be at the bottom of the bucket. So they're all very fit. It's their lifestyle. It's the generation that's there now. But you're right, it goes beyond keeping themselves in shape physically. We really do stress our very best for our officers and our internal staff. So it's not just the ones in blue that are out there walking the street to work on a work-life balance component, but we have a very strong mental health program internally within the organization. We're actually a co-sponsor of a mental health symposium that's coming up in January for first responders. We have an internal mental health committee working on that. We have a crisis intervention and mediation group that helps our officers, all of our staff, after an incident. A very interesting stat for you is that a number of years ago when critical incident stress management teams started, probably I would say around 80% of the work they did was as a result of a critical incident, something that was very disturbing to an officer, and 10%, 20% was roughly on peer support. That's actually flipped. Our team now is more engaged with peer support. All those issues that all people deal with, family issues, financial issues, sleep disorder because of working shifts, all of those things. So we have a number of programs internally that are there to support our staff. It's the stigma has gone away, and we're working very, very hard to make sure that we keep that top of mind for all of our staff, both sworn and civilian.
Thank you. Jack.
Thank you very much, Chief, for your report. I just wanted to, I have to mention it. Wendy, I worked with her many years ago, and everything I know about graffiti and tagging I learned from Wendy. And I know you're going to lose a lot of great experience there.
Absolutely.
And I wanted you to pass on my congratulations to her on her impending retirement, because that's probably the best promotion you can ever get.
Absolutely, I will, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Sarah.
I have to ask the question. Have you noticed, has there been any unexpected, anything your force wasn't expecting from the legalization of marijuana in your day-to-day, or is it just kind of business as usual?
Yeah, very good question. I actually did a radio interview with NW, I think the day after it became legal, and we've honestly not seen any change. I mean, there's been no significant change. We actually had brainstormed a little bit about, well, what will we do if, and it just didn't appear. So I don't know if that's, you know, as a result of just being on the West Coast versus the East Coast, you know. But yeah, we've seen no significant impact.
So no new challenges you're dealing with as a result?
None whatsoever, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Oh, yes, Andy.
Yeah, I'd just like to congratulate yourself and the other officers on the awards, but again, I'd like to echo, especially Wendy. I remember when she actually started, I worked with Wendy for 30 odd years. Actually, before she was a special constable, when she was in the security system, and also a great asset to the organization. So please pass on my best wishes as well.
I will, thank you very much.
Well, Barry, thank you very much, and please pass on our appreciation to all of the members of your force for keeping everyone safe in the system.
Thank you.
Thank you.